Okay, since it's noon, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Ansley Stuart. I'm one of the clinical librarians here at Kornhauser Health Sciences Library. We are recording this session, so if you would like a recording of the session, just go ahead and email me once we're done because I don't like to spam everyone who signed up for the training ahead of time. So I'll send it out to the people who send me an email saying they would like the recording. Also on that note, if you're here because you need extra credit or something for one of your classes and you need some kind of proof that you attended the class, also just email me after the class. There's no formal form saying that you completed or any kind of certificate. So you'll just have to email me and then tell me what class you're with and what professor, and I can email your professor saying you attended this training. But other than that, we'll get started. So welcome to EndNote training. More or less 101. We do the same training every month. So if you're looking for further in-depth training after the session has ended, you'll again need to contact me. I can sit down with you one-on-one about better, more in-depth skills you can use with this program. So EndNote is a citation management program, which means essentially the end goal is for you to be able to write your papers really easily and note more or less once you have the articles and other references in the EndNote program and everything set up. You write your paper, you can just ask it to insert citations for you as you're going along, and it'll write up the bibliography for you in whatever style guide format you want, and it makes it really easy. So it does take a little time to learn, hence why you're at the training, but it really ultimately saves you time on projects and learning all that. And I'll kind of go over this in 3 parts, which is we'll learn how to get the references into EndNote. We'll go over how to best use the EndNote program itself, working within the program. And then part 3 will be how to use EndNote within your Word document. But kind of part 1.1 of that is I'll show you how to get EndNote downloaded if you are completely new to it and you don't have the program itself. So we're starting out on the Kornhauser Health Sciences Library webpage here. We're going to go to Services and go to EndNote Training. They should be alphabetically listed. And maybe this is how you signed up for today's training, but there's other ones, like I said, monthly ones that go over the same information. The second tab in is Download EndNote Desktop, which is the program, the desktop program. And everything I'm about to tell you in the next minute or two, you can review again through this YouTube video here, but you'll ultimately find the EndNote program through U of L's web store. So you can also find this through louisville.edu. Just type in EndNote and it'll take it to U of L's web store, which if you are a U of L member, you should have access to the various programs that the university subscribes to. EndNote, if you weren't a university member, you would have to pay, I think it's an annual fee for EndNote. I think last I checked, I think it was around $90 or so. But thankfully through University of Louisville, it is free. X9 is the old version. I'm not sure why they still have that up, to be honest, but we're going to download EndNote 20, and that's the version I'm going to be showing you today during the training. But it's essentially like online shopping. Of course, you just won't have to pay anything as a U of L member. So just do the whole checkout process. Part of the reason I'm showing you this is because it will ask you if you are, so just going to click yes, not a robot. It will ask you if you're downloading it to a MacBook, so an Apple device, or if you're downloading it to a Windows device. So that is important to differentiate which one you're doing. And I'll try and point out while we're going along through the trainings how those 2 versions differ. It's not a whole lot, it's just a few things, like location of where a tool might be found. But just so I'll try and make it. And then I'm showing you the version. I work on a Windows computer right now. I also use a Mac laptop to try and keep up with the changes between the 2 versions with the program. But everything you've seen today, I'm showing you is the Windows version. So you'll download that, and of course, just click next and go through all the typical settings for downloading a program. But like I said, everything, if you need a refresher on how to download and install EndNote, we do have a YouTube video for that right there. But going back to the Kornhauser webpage, we're starting out here because, as I said, part 1 is teaching you how to use EndNote. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself again. When you do download EndNote, do be sure that you're saving it to your computer's desktop or an external hard drive of a sort. Don't save it to a cloud system of any kind. So that includes, Apple's cloud system, that includes Google Drive, that includes Dropbox or Cardbox. Don't save it to any kind of network drive. So if you're, I don't know, working with the hospital or the university, you might have a U drive or an N drive of some sort that your department used. Do not save EndNote to those. Do not save them to a cloud system. Your files will become corrupted and you're going to lose the data, and there's nothing myself or the people who work for EndNote can do to get it back. So that's my big soapbox that you'll hear me get on a few times during this training. When you're saving EndNote program and the library, the subsequent libraries, which are the files within EndNote, do not save it to a cloud system. Do not save it to a network drive. You want to save it to a hard drive, your desktop's drive, or there is a way to back up EndNote. EndNote has sort of its own cloud system called My EndNote Web, and I'll show you how to use that as we get further into the training. But as I said, I'll remind you multiple times. So let me open up EndNote and show you what it kind of looks like. So this is my EndNote library. So as I said, the libraries are essentially the files within EndNote. So moving forward, when I say library, I don't mean the library here that I work at or the other physical buildings on the university's campus. I'm talking about EndNote's files. So they call them libraries. They call their folders within those libraries groups, which we'll get to. So for whatever reason, they have their own kind of terminology within this program. So I'll try and make clear what I'm talking about when I reference those. But my library, as you can see, my EndNote library is very full right now. I've been using it for a number of years. So it's got over 2,000 references. Reference is just a singular reference within EndNote. I don't know of a better synonym to use. It can be an article, it can be a book, it can be someone's dissertation. It's just a singular line within here, within your EndNote library. So this is what a full one would look like to give you a good idea. But if you're a first-time user or if you're restarting EndNote, you're going to look at a new library, which I'm going to show you. So when you're opening EndNote for the very first time, you're going to find a completely blank page, and it'll ask you if you want to start a new library. As you can see, new reference library at the top of this window here. And I'm just going to title this April EndNote library. You can obviously title it whatever you would like. And I tend to save it in my documents folder on my desktop. But again, you can save it anywhere on your desktop you like, just not to a cloud or a network drive. So click save, and then give it a few seconds. And this is what a brand new library looks like. So blank, but obviously still the same 3 panels that you saw within my library that's already been populated. And this is important because as we're saving references, they obviously have to be saved somewhere in a library. So I'm going to show you how to pull references from databases. There is a way to search within EndNote for references and add them to your library. I don't teach that method because it's very clunky. You can't really reproduce the search results unless you're looking at a very broad term. You can't really narrow things down. So there is a way to do that. I just don't teach it, again, because it's a very clunky method. And I like to show people how to get resources from various databases and other sources. So we're going to start with PubMed here, which is essentially provided by the National Library of Medicine. So of course, it's not just a library subscription database. It's available to anyone. The only difference is some of the journals you have to have a subscription to. So some of the full text is kind of behind a paywall, and that's kind of dependent. That's kind of where the library aspect comes in. But we're going to pretend that we have a paper due on lung cancer. And so that's going to be my running example through this training, is that we have a paper that's due on lung cancer, and we're doing research for that. So we're trying to pull articles for our lung cancer project. So you can pull references one of 2 ways from PubMed. You can say, look at this top article here and say, hey, that looks great. Let's click on that. Give it a look over and say, this is what I would like to save to EndNote. So I can have it for a later date, you would go to Send to Citation Manager, because as I said, EndNote is a citation management program. You do Create File, and it's going to download the singular citation for you. You'll click on the downloaded file, and there we go. It opens automatically into EndNote. If you're a first-time user, and you double-click the downloaded citation file, it'll ask you usually what program you want it to open with, and of course you'll just have to say EndNote, and then usually it knows to automatically direct it to EndNote every time after. If for whatever reason you have more than one citation management program on your computer, you just want to make EndNote the default program, unless you're working with something else that you prefer. So that was pretty easy. I'll show you how we can download multiple articles at once for PubMed into EndNote. So let's say we like these top 6 articles here. We're just going to do the checkbox in the search results page and say these are all great articles. Let's save them to review them later. And you'll go again, Send to, same button as when we were on the singular articles page. Again, Citation Manager. And you'll do Create File. And even though we're asking it to export multiple citations, it's still going to be just one file that it exports into. And then we'll double click the downloaded file and ask it to import into the EndNote program. One quick thing to note is whenever you import new citations or references, they'll import, when it opens up the EndNote program, you'll just see the most recent ones that you imported. So we just see the 6 that we did, but if we want to see the 7 that we have in total of our library, just click on all references. So some people call me because they're a little worried, saying, oh, I can't find the references that I imported before. Don't worry, they're still there. Just click on all references, because when you import a new one, it just shows you the most recent one. And so that's how you download from PubMed. We're going to go to an EBSCOhost database, which may not mean much of anything to you, but I'll explain. So pretty much any of the databases that you see that have this symbol, the U of L symbol up in the corner here, they're an EBSCOhost database, which is just the publisher of the databases. They have a number of them. You can see choose databases. So not just health science related, but a number of other ones. So they have plenty of business databases, academic search complete, historical databases. I mostly show this to you to let you know that a lot of our databases are EBSCOhost databases, and that they all have this similar layout when you get to them, which is good because that means they all have the same way of downloading exporting the references from this database. So you don't need to remember the name of the database. You just need to know that if it has this kind of layout, you come to a database and it has this layout, this is how you're going to export a reference. So again, we're doing a lung cancer paper. So we're just going to click on the top one here. And this one's a little different. So it says export instead of send to, like PubMed did. So for these types of databases, you're going to go to export on the right-hand side here. You're going to click, you're not going to need to click any other of the little check mark boxes here. It's already on the one you want it to, so the very top one. And it's pretty easy for you to see because it even says EndNote here and the examples given for the various citation management databases. So you don't need to select anything else. Top one is already selected for you. You just click save. So you do export, save, and it'll download the citation for you like it did when we were at PubMed. Oh, I'm sorry, I think there was an error. Let me do that again. Export, save. Maybe that's just a article that's having trouble. I'll select a different one from our search results list. So still same thing, export, save, there we go. And again, it just exports the citation information. We'll click on the downloaded citation file and it uploads it into our EndNote program. Ta-da! And so you can see this is the most recently imported reference. And then if we go to all references, we see the total of 8 from the 2 databases that we have pulled. So that's how you download from databases that look like this. And then I'm going to show you how to download references from Google Scholar, which again is, where I think Scholar's at the beginning, right? Oh, good. I don't have to click on it. So again, Google Scholar is available to anyone. You don't have to be affiliated with the library. It's just a matter of getting full text is kind of where the library comes into play here. But Google Scholar is different from the last 2 databases that I showed you because when you want to download into EndNote or any other citation management program, you first have to go to Settings and go down to the bottom little box here that says Bibliography Manager and make sure the very bottom link is checked, the very bottom circle is checked that says show links to import citations into, and make sure EndNote is selected. So again, Settings, the bottom box here, click the bottom link and make sure EndNote is the one selected in the drop down here. And then you click Save so that when we do our search on lung cancer, the articles that come up now say import into EndNote. If we hadn't done that settings option in settings before, we wouldn't see anything here. It would just, the search result for this would just cut off at Web of Science. So we wouldn't see the link for import into EndNote. So let's just, but now that we have that, we will click our import link. And again, it'll download the citation file. We'll double click that to then import it into our EndNote. And so that's part 1 of our training. If you have other databases that you're not aware of how to get the citation into EndNote, let me know, because pretty much all the databases have an option to import citation references into a citation management program. The databases are kind of like driving a rental car. You know that all the same parts are there. They just might be located in a different format than what you're used to. So you'll have to search around for it a little bit. But now we know how to download references from PubMed, any of the EBSCO looking databases, and then how to download from Google Scholar. So now that we have our references here, we're going to start playing around with them. So we're moving on to part 2 of the training, which is how to best use the EndNote program itself on your desktop. So first thing I want to show you is, maybe you have a reference that you're not able to find in a database. Maybe you've had a really old book that you can't find, because a lot of times books are hard to find and pull the citation reference file from a database. It may not exist even, depending on the age of the book. Or you have some other kind of reference that you're having a hard time pulling. To that, I say you can always create a reference. So the little clipboard icon that has a plus symbol in the middle panel of EndNote is what you're going to click to create a new reference, and that comes up with this window here. And I'm going to enlarge that a bit. And so next step is deciding what your reference type is that you're trying to create a reference for. So as you can see, there's lots of different types of reference formats that EndNote already has accounted for. So, it could be ancient text, artwork, a bill from the government, books, as we're going to show, data set, dictionary, film or broadcast, government document, trying to say social media, television episode, a thesis of someone's, unpublished work. There's music, and then there a web page at the very bottom here, and there are unused ones. So even if you don't see the reference type that you're looking for, you can go ahead and create one for yourself. But that's getting a little more into the weeds of how to get, the nitty-gritty with EndNotes. We won't do that today. So we're going to say we're creating a reference for a book. So we've got our reference type book, and then we're going to try and fill out as much of this information as we possibly can. So let's just say, I'm going to be vain, and I'm going to write this book and type in my own name as the author here. And then say this book was written in 2012. I'm going to have lung cancer. As the title. And then, as I said, try and fill out as much of the information as you can. So if it's a textbook, or multi-volume set of books, fill out the volumes, fill out the page numbers. If you're only referencing specific page numbers, if it's been translated, put in the translator. Try and put in the ISBN number, which is particularly important for books. I think it's International Standard Book Number, I think is what ISBN stands for. I could be completely wrong about that. Or the DOI, the Digital Object Identifier. It could also be Direct Object Identifier. Sorry, it's been a long morning. Either way, those are the ID numbers. DOIs are typically more common for articles than they are for books. And yeah, so you don't have to, you can fill out as little of this as you need to, but try and fill out as much as possible so that when you are having EndNote write up your bibliography in the Word document, it can write it up to the best of the style guide's ability for whichever one you choose. So that's kind of a way to, save yourself from hassle down the road when you're having to do the bibliography, especially if you're turning this in for a class and your teacher's asking you where all the information is. Okay, so once you're filled out, obviously click save, and you can exit out of that window. And there, as you can see, highlighted is the book example that I just created. And here's the very little citation information that is available through it. And this lets you know on the kind of bottom pane at the right side what it's going to look like when you insert it into a bibliography on a Word document or whatever project you're working on. So APA style, it would look like that. If I'm doing American Medical Association style, it would look like that. This is really handy. It kind of lets you know ahead of time what it would look like. And if you just need a single citation, you can copy this, click copy, and then you can go and post it into an email or something if you're trying to say, like, if, for instance, if you're ever emailing myself or another librarian and you say, hey, I found this article, but I'm having a hard time finding the full text, you can download the reference citation information into EndNote, copy what the citation is, paste it into an email and send it off to me and say, could you help me find the full text for this? So just an example for handy tools that EndNote gives you. So now that we've created our references, we have a nice little library of 10 references. We have the option of finding the full text for these articles. So what we've done so far is we've only pulled the citation information for these articles. So that means, as you can see, it has all of our information for what the citation is, but we do not have the full text of the article. So we have no way of reading this article because that's a separate process. So there's two ways to do that. There's the easy way and the hard way, which honestly, you'll probably have to use both depending on how many articles you pull. So the easy way, and what I recommend doing for anyone starting out, is you're going to click, you select all the references that you want to find the full text for, and I just hit Control A to select for the whole group. You can do it one at a time if you prefer. And you're then going to right click on the selected articles, on the highlighted ones, and do Find Full Text. Oh, that reminds me. Sorry. Before you do that, you're going to want to go to Preferences. So if you're in the Windows version, Preferences is under the EndNote tab at the very top here. If you're in the Mac version, there will be an EndNote tab on the very left, and that's where your preferences will be. So If you're a Mac, it'll be EndNote preferences. And if you're using a Windows, it'll be edit preferences. But preferences are essentially the settings within EndNote. So we'll go back here a few times. To best use the find full text feature, you're going to want to include the URL for Kornhauser, or if you use the Extern library more, you can use that one. This is a proxy into the library, and if you're not as metadata, I guess, savvy, or essentially what this means is you want to pull the URL for the libraries, whichever library you're most comfortable or you tend to find the most resources through. So like I said, you can be Ekstrom's or Kornhauser's. And you put it right here where it says URL under find full text. And this is going to verify, essentially is going to ask you to verify that you are a U of L member. So it'll ask you for your ULink ID and ULink login. And that way it's signing you into the proxy through the library and getting you as many full text options as possible. If that's kind of confusing, I'm sorry, I don't really know of a better way to explain it at this point. Essentially, as I've been saying with the databases, like PubMed and Google Scholar, you can use Google Scholar and PubMed at any time. They are freely available to any public citizen. The issue becomes when you're trying to access the PDF or the full text of the article. That's usually when you kind of hit a paywall, because the journals expect money to, most journals expect money for the articles for people to read them. So that's where the library comes in. It's where the ones front giving that money, that annual subscription for these journals, and actually providing the full text. So you have to prove that you are a U of L member who has the right to access this full text through the university's subscription. But what you need to know is just copy the URL for the library, put it in the find full text in the URL box right here. You hit OK, or you hit apply, but I already have it selected. You hit OK. And so that way, when you select your text and say, hey, I want to find the full text for it, you're going to do right click, find full text. And this little window is going to pop up, and you're going to hit continue. And that way it verifies that you are logging into the proxy through the libraries and U of L member. And then it'll start finding and pulling full text articles for you and attaching them to your various references here in EndNote. So I realized that was kind of a long-winded explanation. Sorry, there's not really a better way for me to kind of condense that. And depending on how many articles you have, EndNote's going to spend more time trying to find the full text for you. But this is mostly important because, especially if you're working off campus, if you're not connected to the university's Wi-Fi, and I do mean the university's, not the hospital's Wi-Fi, or you're not directly connected to, via like an Ethernet cable with one of the computers on the university's campus, then you're gonna have to log in off campus via off-campus login. So while they're searching for find full text, I'm gonna show you really quickly what that looks like. So going back to the library's homepage, and this is, you're gonna be prompted to do this if you try and access full text while searching the databases anyway. But this is just the off-campus login. And it just asks you for your ULink information, your ULink login, and then you go back to library. And again, this is just a way for you to log in through the proxy to say, yes, I'm a U of L member, and I have the rights to access the full text and the other resources that are protected via the library subscriptions. That's a whole nother soapbox for me to get on. Basically, publishers aren't the best. And I'm sure you all know that if you ever try to publish a paper. But we got to work with what we got, right? So now that the find full text has finished, and you'll just know because it'll say, you won't have the little insert that says it's still scanning. So it found 3 full text articles for us via PDF, and then it found 3 via URL, and then didn't find 4, which is pretty typical, I would say. It's still not going to find every full text for you. It's a lot of back-end coding that goes over my pay grade, so I can't explain further as to why more aren't pulled. But you can always attach a PDF. And so as I was saying, find full text is the easy way to get the full text of the articles. The hard way is just to go in and hand attach the PDFs for you. And you would do that like you would any kind of PDF attachment as if you were using email or anything like that. So obviously you would have to have the PDF pulled for whatever that article is and just save it somewhere to your desktop and then click attach PDF from wherever you saved it previously. Let's see. I will add a note of warning though, whenever you attach a PDF, make sure it's the correct article for the correct reference. EndNote isn't going to have some kind of safety net that says, hey, the PDF that you attached, the title of it does not match the reference that you attached it to. There's no kind of safety net for that. So just make sure you're attaching the correct PDF to the correct article, to the correct reference. But this is what it looks like when you do have a PDF attachment. Let's see if I can enlarge that a bit. So this is really handy because you have the citation reference line here, and then you have the PDF in the second pane, and you can ask it to open a separate window. And we'll enlarge this a bit so we can see it a little better. But this is really great because you can take notes and highlight the PDF in EndNote, and it'll save your notes for you at a later time. So if you're going through, instead of having to have a whole separate folder on your desktop somewhere, you can just have all your notes saved within EndNote itself. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. So it's kind of hard to see, but under the drop downs here, there's a little kind of text box looking, like chat box looking icon. And when you hover over it, it says markup/annotation, and you'll click that. And then you have the options, as I said. You can add a text box. So this is how you can add notes somewhere. You can highlight, so you'll select the highlight feature. And I can just say, hey, this is an article. This is a sentence I want to remember to save later. It highlights it for you. You can underline things, and you can do strike through as well. So any kind of those notes. And then you'll just click Save Changes to this PDF and exit out of it. And there you go. And as you can see from this little preview panel, it saved our notes there. So you can come back to them later. This is where I'm also going to take the time to tell you another good practice for saving the EndNote libraries. So you already heard me get on my soapbox about saving so I'm just deleting those so it's less clutter off my desktop. So when I opened our new library, you saw I saved it to our documents folder, right? Because as I said, you have to save EndNote libraries to your desktop. So I saved it under documents folder, and I titled it April EndNote library. And I'm going to see if I can enlarge this because I realize it's very tiny font. Might be hard to see, so I'm going to save it to the desktop instead. But what I'm trying to get at here is whenever you move an EndNote library, and whether that's through because you're changing computers, your old computer died and you have to pull the old files off of it, or you are trying to give the entire library to someone else, which there is a better way to do that, and I'll show you how. But whatever your reason is, if you need to move your EndNote library for any reason, make sure you have it so that the .data file with the same name as your EndNote library always moves with your library file. So I have these two highlighted. I realize it's probably hard to see if you have a smaller screen, but we have our library that we've been working out of, the April EndNote library. And when that was created, it also created April EndNote library .data. And that's a folder that houses all the PDFs that you attach to the EndNote library. So if you just end up moving the EndNote library file, you don't move it with the .data folder, you're going to lose all those PDFs that are attached to the library, and it won't be able to open them for you because those two aren't together. So wherever you end up moving your library file to, just make sure you move it with the .data folder. That's very important if you have any PDF attachments. But back to working within the EndNote program. So Find Full Text is a really handy tool. We also have the tool of deduplicating any articles that have more than one. So if, for instance, when we pulled our articles from PubMed, I pulled the first one twice. And that's going to be an issue when you are trying to write up your bibliography in the Word document. So we can, and if you're pulling a lot of articles from a lot of different databases, let's say you're doing a pretty large project, there's a good chance there's going to be an overlap of the search results of the articles, right? So what you can do is you can go to Tools. Sorry, is it under? Oh, I'm sorry, it's under Library. I think that's the same dropdown for a Mac version as well. So under Library, you have this handy feature called Find Duplicates. And you click on that, and it lets you see that it found a duplicate of this record, which, as I explained, is one of the articles from PubMed that we had pulled. So you can say which one you want to keep. So I'm just going to keep the first one, and then it will delete the other one for you. And in case you make a mistake, whether deduplicating or just deleting something in general, it'll send it to your trash within EndNote. So it won't delete everything until you right click empty trash. So it does have that kind of a safety net of it won't automatically delete things until you go to trash and tell it to delete, which is nice. But as I said, there's going to be a lot of confusion when you're actually typing up your paper and adding in citations to the Word document if you have duplicates of an article from your EndNote library that you're trying to pull. So it's just going to be, good practice to deduplicate before you start writing your paper. Make sure you don't have the same article twice, because it's going to get confusing as to what citation the EndNote program is pulling into the Word document. And then I think that might be, risk groups. So as I was saying earlier, with, again, my soapbox of not saving EndNote libraries onto a cloud system or a network drive, EndNote itself does have sort of a backup cloud system for you to use. You have to work within theirs. If you're saving it to any kind of cloud system, it can only be theirs. Again, having to deal with corruption of the reference files. So what you're going to do is go to myendnoteweb.com, and you can just Google my EndNote web. It'll come up. It's going to look like this. If you're a first-time user, you'll just go to register, include your email and your password. It does not have to be your U of L or ULH email. I would suggest it, because if you ever end up calling tech support through EndNote, they're going to ask what your email is. But if you want to use your Gmail or personal email, you can do that. Then you'll have to create a password. This password is in no way affiliated with the university or the hospital, and will ask you to change it at any time. So do be sure you save it somewhere, because no one's able to get it back for you in terms of IT from the either institution. You'll just have to change your password if you lose it. You don't even have to put in your first and last name if you don't want to, and then you got to do the CAPTCHA, verify that you're not a robot. If you are a robot, no prejudice from me, but you still have to at least lie to them about it. Okay. So once you register, you'll get an email that says confirm your account. pretty typical for starting a new account with anything. And it'll bring you back here to do your login. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign in since I have mine created here. And sometimes it takes a minute or two. You do kind of have to be a little patient with EndNote. It is on the slow side a little sometimes. So this is what you'll see first time logging in, and it's completely blank. And so you won't have any references or anything like that. And what you're going to do, I think I might have, so I logged into one that actually is not affiliated with my EndNote because I would like to show you what it looks like when you log in for the first time. However, if I go in and sign in with the one that is actually affiliated with my EndNote library files, you'll see that it is populated with all the references across all the different libraries I've been using. So the very first library that I showed you at the beginning of this training that had over 2,000 references, they are all backed up here on myendnoteweb.com. And so this is how you back everything up, in case you ever lose things, since you can't save your EndNote libraries to an alternative cloud or network drive. I do still recommend going ahead and having a backup on an external drive, like a flash drive or something along those lines, just in case, because that way you'll be able to save the PDFs as well. But this is how you, if you ever want to share your EndNote library with someone, let's say if you're working in a group and multiple people are working out of one library file, or you will have to create a My EndNote Web to do so. And so that's why I showed you how to create one, because now I'm going to show you how to share a library or a group with someone. So groups, I mentioned a little while back, are essentially folders within EndNote. So if you create a group, we're going to say lung cancer. It's just a way to organize things within your EndNote program, because if you're like me, you end up with thousands of articles. They're obviously not all going to be on the same topic or the same project. So you do want to be able to organize them into the different subjects that you're working with at the time. So I'm just going to select all of my articles and drag and drop them into our lung cancer group. It's just as simple as that. That's how you can organize them. You can create however many groups you would like for whatever topics you're working on. And then you can share a group with someone. So you're going to right click, share group. Oh, right. Sorry, that was the other reason I have my personal library open, is because when you do sync your library with the My EndNote Online, My EndNote Web, excuse me, it will sync with any other library you've had in the past that you've synced before. So it used to be with old versions of EndNote, really even just the most recently previous version of EndNote until now, if you wanted to share references with people through EndNote, you had to share your entire library, and that was a real pain. So most people had multiple library files. Now you really only need one library to work out of, because you can just share individual groups. So that's been a big improvement with this most recent version of EndNote. Hence, again, why I have so many references in here. So when you create your My EndNote Web, you're going to go back to preferences. So again, if you're using Windows, it's edit preferences. If you're using Mac, it'll be the EndNote dropdown preferences. Either way, we're going to the same place. So you go EndNote preferences, and you're going to go to sync, which these are just alphabetically listed. So sync will be towards the bottom. And you're going to put in the same login that you created for your My EndNote Web account. So it has to be the same email, the same password. And then you'll hit apply. And again, this is how you save your references to a cloud system of sorts, so that if your computer ever crashes, you don't lose your entire EndNote library with it. I would hit apply, except mine is already applied, so I'm just going to hit OK. and it will sync everything with your online account. And that's important because if we wish to share a library with someone, so we're going to say share. So if you want to share a library, again, if you're working in a group, you just do file share. I think if you're working in the Mac version, it's file EndNote share, I believe. But then you're going to type in the emails of the people that you wish to share the library with. And then you offer them the option of read only or read and write. So that means read and write means that they have permission to edit the library. And then read only means they can only view the library. So make sure you decide which permission you want to give the people that you're working in the library with that you are sharing. And then you can add a little message if you'd like. And as you can see, you can share your library with up to 400 or so people. But if you don't wish to share your entire library with someone, you just want to share a group, you would just have to go to that group, right click, select share group. And it's the same lookout, it's the same open window that comes up. You'll just know that you're sharing a group because it'll say at the top, sharing group, name of group. If you're sharing your entire library, you'll just see the word sharing. So you'll know what you're sharing with people. Again, same thing, type in the email that they have. Do be sure to note though, that if you're sharing an EndNote library with someone who does not have the EndNote program themselves on their end, they won't be able to open it. So it's not like you can share with them and it'll open in a, PDF format. They already have to have the EndNote program themselves to be able to open and view your EndNote library that you're sharing with them. Yeah, and do be careful if you give them permission to read and write, aka editing, that they can go in and make any kind of edits to the citation, the references. So you always have the option of editing these references at any time. So let's say, oh, I know that this publication year was wrong. It's actually 2018. You can come in and edit that. And let's say it's 18, save. And if you're working in a group setting with that library or that library group EndNote grouping, there's not going to be any kind of notification that's sent to you that says, J. Smith went and edited the year on the citation. There will be a history of edits that have been made to the library, and it'll show up, and once you share, there'll be an icon that comes up with that. You can click on that history to see what edits have been made, but there's not going to be a notification or an email sent to you that lets you know that someone's made an edit. You'll just have to go through and view the history. All right, so hopefully I haven't confused you too much, or if I have and you've zoned out a bit, because I realize this is a lot of information coming at you at once. That's okay, because now it's time to tune back in, because I'm going to start with part 3 of our training, which is how to use EndNote in a Word document, which is really why we're all here, right? So we can make our lives easier by learning this program to write up the bibliography and the citations for us. And trust me, it is worth it, the time to get to know this program. It will save you time in the long run. You just gotta, go through this training first and work around with it yourself a little.